All right, so today's video, we're going to break down the takeaway. We're going to give you some exercises for you to test to see if the pro-like takeaway that you might be after is even achievable. We'll just give you some real simple body tests that you can use, that you can see if you can do them, if you can improve upon them. Of course, you can improve upon them. It just takes a little bit of time. But you have to understand that maybe that pro-like takeaway, that Adam Scott, Tiger Woods, Justin Rose takeaway, if it's possible with how your body actually moves, okay? Because if it's not possible, then you kind of need to find a different adjustment to make sure that takeaway isn't affecting your swing. So the takeaway, in my opinion, plays a big role. If the takeaway is wrong in the backswing, it can mess up your club face, it can mess up your path on the way down, it can cause basically a two-way miss if the takeaway is falling into the wrong areas of the golf swing. So that is what we're going to start off with today, is especially the body test to begin with. If you're brand new to our channel, make sure you subscribe. You'll see our future videos. If you hit that bell button, you'll see all our future videos that we are posting out. You'll get a little notification. And give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this content on, basically, we're going to break down the takeaway for you. The first thing that you need to test is if your upper body and lower body can basically be separate from one another. A lot of our daily lives is standing up, sitting down. It's not rotational. We don't do a whole lot of stuff rotational in everyday life, so we tend to start to lose it, but we can still gain it back if we work on it. So the first thing you need to do, and this is if you're trying to get that pro takeaway, you just get into your golf posture, and your knees and your hips, basically if you have a belt buckle here, it cannot move, it cannot rotate, and only your chest gets to have the right rotation. If you see your legs and knees start to moving, then that pro takeaway is a little bit out of your realm right now. You have to make a little bit of adjustments with your golf swing, right? But if you're up there and everything looks like nothing lower moves and your upper body moves, then you can even go faster and see if it starts happening, right? But it needs to, lower body needs to feel like it's dead for you to have that really good takeaway that you're looking for. From down the line, the same idea. You feel like you stay in your spine angle, so this isn't turning, that's cheating. All right, you stay in your spine angle, you rotate, you can go slow in the beginning, you can try to go bigger, you can go faster. As long as the lower body doesn't move, then you're in a good step. The ability to disassociate your upper and your lower plays a big role, not only in takeaway, but in the downswing. So it's a very easy, simple test for you to start with. Okay. Now, if you're somebody who tends to be stuck, we're just going to talk about your faults real fast, right? We're going to give you exercises or simple little drills on how to improve your disassociation. But if you're somebody who's stuck, you're going to be somebody who hips and body tend to move together, club gets stuck inside. You can still be halfway successful from here. The chances are slim because then you have to really drop it down, and most likely that's not going to happen. Now, if you take it just a little inside and you just swing a little bit over the top, that's okay. You can still play that well. There's a few, like Victor Hovland does that. There's a few players who do that just a little bit, okay? All right, so before we talk about the takeaway and some of the ideas and how we really get it to start to connect and work for our golf swing, I'm just going to give you some drills, especially for those who are stuck. So the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to set up, right? You're going to put your hands a few inches apart, and without your lower body moving, you're going to work on just turning without your fingers going different distances away. All right, you're just going to work on turning lower body. And some of you might only get till there until your hips start moving. You're just going to start to try to create it bigger and bigger. All right, we don't want your fingers to separate or anything, but we want them to feel like they stay the same distance apart. If that's kind of hard for you, you can just start it kind of in like a prayer position and just work on turning without your hands going apart or doing anything weird. So those are some simple exercises. And I would suggest you actually do it both ways, because might as well, right? It'll help your extension on the way through. And if you just do that, let's say you spend 5 minutes a day, you can do it sitting on the couch if you want to. That's even better. That isolates your lower body, right? If you spend some time doing that, you'll notice that you get better in time of turning without everything moving together. So this is a very simple drill. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, just to help your golf swing. And then you can test it. You put that club in your hand and you try the same feeling of just your body moving and your hands staying the same distance apart. You'll notice that your takeaway automatically starts to improve, starts to get better. Okay, so we've talked about body test, kind of how to fix it. Now we're just going to talk about you're in search of that pro takeaway, what it looks like, what you need to feel. Okay, so we'll talk about basically two faults. Let's say somebody is really good at rotating, two faults. All right, fault number one is that sometimes when we try to get power, we push forward and we roll, and you see all that separation in your forearms. All right, when the club gets back there, or even if there's a little push, you start to have a two-way miss automatically. That was my fault. Okay, so I've done that in the past. I'm still working on fixing it because I did it for so long. I thought, oh man, it looks pretty good right there. My hands on the club are kind of in like the circle type thing, but they were messed up. All right, and I was struggling a lot to hit a good, consistent iron shot, and the driver was always kind of shaky. But since I've been doing that and working on that, my ball striking has increased a whole lot. So much better. I don't toe crap anymore, which everybody hates to do that. All right, it's solid, it's going at the target. Things are looking good. Path is good. All right, so that would be one fix. The other one is you take the club, you turn, but you take it too much inside. Okay, and what you want to do, as I suggest, is that you tape it, or I tape it, but I need a mirror to look at it. I don't have a big mirror. If you go to like your patio back door, you can kind of see your reflection. So I work on it there, and then I come here and I practice what it feels like. Right, and you have to have the feel in order to know how to fix it. All right, if you're just guessing, if you're taking it away right, it could be completely wrong than what it actually is happening. So you need to be able to feel it. I would suggest doing stuff with your eyes closed, or basically moving into compartments. But so when we talk about the takeaway, all right, the first thing that I feel is I try to keep my head exactly still, and it's all about how I rotate. All right, so it really feels like everything's pulling back behind me. All right, my hips aren't going to go first. All right, when it comes to your hands, what they should feel like, let's say this is the orientation of your hands and your wrists. As they come back, they shouldn't change. They should stay the same. All right, so orientation of your hands stay the same, because if you do anything with your wrists, it can move it into weird different positions. All right, orientation of the hands stay the same. All right, and I just really feel like I'm turning around in a little circle. All right, so we take it back. Orientation of the hands don't change, because if I do any pushing, I know it right away. So it almost feels like it's dragging. The hands aren't changing. All right, and you can see how my chest is turning around. It's not tilting under or going flat. It's just really staying in spot. Helps my head stay in spot. All right. For me, and this will change depending on how far you stand from the ball. All right. For me, it feels like when I have a good takeaway, that when I turn correctly, this feels like it's over my shoelaces. All right. Versus out over your toes. That's kind of a push, right? Because I want my hands to basically stay the same distance from me. Because I used to be a pusher, and whenever you push, that club does bad things. All right. So it's a very simple. Just turn. Keep the orientation of the wrists correct. Right? Sometimes it might get a little behind. Sometimes the head might be a little bit out in front. Right? But if you make it really simple, so no pushing, and it's just a basic turn, and then eventually what happens is you'll get to a certain point as you turn when your thoracic spine or your chest reaches a spot, and then the hips will start to move with it. All right? We never want the hips to be the first thing moving back. Okay? So you get your setup. You can just practice moving it back without the wrist moving, bending over, taking it back, making sure your chest moves correctly. All right, if your chest moves down as you take it back, all right, it's going to swing inside. If your chest reverse tilts, you're going to take it outside. All right? And if your chest stays on spot, basically turns on top of the spine, you'll get it back to the right spot. Okay? So that is how we perform that takeaway that we're always in search for. Okay? Sometimes you'll see pros who move it a little bit further away. Some of them move it a little bit further inside. All right? But the one thing they all have in common is the wrist orientation stays the same. There's not any of this stuff going on. It's very kind of dead in the beginning. You'll see some pros who have a little, maybe a slight little lead with their hands, but then the same thing, the wrist orientation doesn't change. Okay, and that's one of the hardest things. When people who are trying to get the hands up high, they tend to push away and do weird stuff. There's different ways to get it to the top, different ways to handle how to get the club higher in the golf swing. Maybe I'll make a video on that later. But so for today, just practice your turning, get better at it, right? And then just make sure wrists stay the same position, and all you're doing is turning around in a spot. Okay, and you'll be able to see what the head kind of does. It doesn't move a whole lot. Okay, and you can see how my hands are staying low. They're not getting high. That's a mistake that some people do, is they kind of get it up a little high. Hands in the takeaway should feel like they don't increase in height. They stay nice and low the whole time, because all you're doing is turning. So they stay nice and low, and then comes how you set the wrist. And if you want to see a video on that, we can do that later. But right now, this is just a simple, perfect takeaway. So you don't have to push super hard. You don't have to do a whole lot. You just rotate. It might feel like your arms and your hands are kind of dead in the beginning. All right, but that's a simple way to do it. And so once you get that down, you just kind of practice hitting little shots. Big shots don't really help in anything. Full swing doesn't really help in anything if you're trying to make a change. So that's why a net's kind of helpful. Or just if you go to range, practice taking it away correctly. My right arm kind of feels like it stays really close to my side. Everybody just try to find the feels that work for you. And I just work through what I want it to feel like.